working with body mechanics for a large majority of this course, and it's time to start infusing character and emotion into all of the drawings that we're creating in all of our animations. The easiest way to add a little bit of character and a little bit of life is through the eyes. The eyes are the gateway to the soul. The eyes are going to allow us to very, very quickly suggest to our audience that there's something on the inside of our character that's bringing these animations to life. The easiest thing for us to create is a blink. Without a blink, our characters are going to feel very robotic and basic and just kind of not alive. Robots don't need to moisturize their eyes, if you will. They don't need to blink, so they don't. But us human beings and animals and other creatures are going to need to blink all the time. So the blink is an important part and the easiest way to remind our audience that our characters are alive and they're living, breathing creatures that are populating our environment. Let's jump in and start looking at how we can craft a blink very quickly using our animation tools in Blender. I think for this animation, I'm going to make just a very simple eyeball with the pupil and a lid opening and closing. It's going to be a relatively fast animation, maybe 7 or 8 frames. We want to ensure that there's enough animation information to provide a nice opportunity to squash and then stretch the eyeball back open again. Blinks happen over the course of 7 or 8 frames, maybe a third of a second, if you will. They should never be more, or they should never be less than 5. That's not enough time for the eye to close and open. A fast animation that's only 2 frames is going to appear like a blink. And there's going to be some legit deformation happening in the eyeball itself, so 7 or 8 frames seems like a good target. Let's start off by creating some new animation layers that will separate all this information away from each other and give us a high degree of control. So let's delete the 2 that every file comes with. And I want to have one that's going to be for the eyelid. And then I'm also going to have an animation layer that's reserved for the pupil itself. And this is just going to give me an opportunity to separate these 2 objects away from each other, use the layering system inside of Blender to give us a really great result. Of course, the only thing that's going to be on the pupil is going to be the eye, the interior iris, if you will, of the eyeball itself. Most of the work that we do is going to be in the lid. In addition to setting up our animation layers, let's spend a couple moments just kind of refreshing and modifying the materials that come with our scene. I like to do this at the beginning. I don't need the red strokes, and I don't need some dots. I do need a stroke for both the eye and the pupil, so that's going to be a good one. But let's give this one down here a little bit more of a definition. This is going to be the lid. And I think I also want to have another material for the pupil itself. I don't know what color my pupil is going to be, probably just black. So let's create another material. Let's give it a good name. And this is going to be the one for the pupil. I think I'm just going to make its fill settings just black. So we'll go down here. It's going to be the base color. We don't want a stroke on it. There we go. All right. With our materials and our animation layer set up, let's do the work of getting our drawing ready to rock and roll here. So, of course, naturally, the eye is going to be a circle. So I've fired off the circle tool, and let's just start drawing. I think I'm going to have my pupil, or excuse me, my eye, be a little bit more cartoony, so kind of a big oval shape. You're more than welcome to make yours any shape that you'd like. Let's continue to draw the rest of this by exploring what and how we're going to do the lid itself. And let's get the pupil in there. Sorry. Now for this, I want to make sure that I'm on the pupil layer. We're only going to draw the pupil once. And let's make sure that we're on the pupil material before we draw. There we go. Something like that. Now, it's taking the strength value. Or I may not have my color set, but that's okay. Sometimes, there we go. Now it's lovely. Let's grab it. It's way too big, so I'll scale it down just a little bit. I'm going to put it right there, kind of in the center. Now we're going to see this on frame 1, but it's going to change where our understanding of the blink is going to change here in a second. Let's return to our lid layer and start the crafting of our eyelid itself. And this is something that we need to pay real close attention to on frames 2 through 8. On frame 1, the eyeball is going to be completely open. I've gone ahead and locked my pupil animation layer just to make sure that I don't accidentally do anything to it. And I've selected the lid animation layer down here in my timeline. So now I'm free to go back into draw mode. And on frame 2, let's just duplicate frame 1. before we go any further, let's change our sequence to 10 frames and then preview those 10 frames. Yeah, there we go. Something like that. Excellent. Okay, so here's the duplicate frame. Let's put that on frame 2 real fast and start the process of drawing the eyelid. Now, I like for this just to use the arc tool, and I think that's a really good place to begin. Let's change our material to solid stroke, and I want to find a good natural starting point. When the eye first starts to close, we want it to slowly start its movement and then close real quickly. Don't forget, the principles of animation even apply to a blink. Nothing starts and stops at the exact same time, and everything is going to slowly begin and slowly end its movement. We're going to do the same thing and apply those ideas to our little blink. Let's do it real fast. I'm going to hold down the Shift key so that the start and stop points are the exact same, and I'm really pleased with that. That's a great place to go. I'm digging it. I like the shape that we're creating here. So for frame 3, let's just duplicate frame 2. So for frame, now why didn't it duplicate everything? Because I think I duplicated frame. Did I put all that on frame 1? I sure did. I made a mistake. Let's go back in time a little bit here. We're going to redraw that curve on the right frame. I had frame 2 selected, but my playhead was on frame 1, so all of my curved arced information went on frame 1. Let's try that again. Let's go into the curve tool. Make sure we're on the lid. Yep, there we go. Let's change our material back to solid stroke so I can see what I'm doing. There it is. Voila, I like that. That's a good one. I think that's going to be a good start. Now for frame 3, we're going to take the duplicate of frame 2. So Shift D, bring it over here to frame 3. And I think what I'm going to do is just recycle the stroke that was created for the lid. I'm going to grab it with the G key. Allows me to move it anywhere around the frame. But if I hold down or if I tap the Z key, it'll constrain it to just the up and down axis. And I think I'm looking at the distance this is traveling over the course of a couple frames. Now I don't want it to be all the way down, but I do want it to be kind of maybe right around in here. Let's scale it up. And then voila, I think that's pretty good. Let's look at the animation so far. I'll flip through. Yep. And as one might imagine, on frame 4, this is where the eyeball is going to be completely shut. So on frame 4, I'm going to go back to frame 1. And frame 1 includes the drawing of the eye without that line for the lid. So let's duplicate this one. Send the duplicate over to frame 4. I'll put my playhead on frame 4 as well. And see what we got. Now, the illusion is not complete because we see the pupil. We'll deal with that here in a minute. But we're just setting the structure for the lid. All right, so with that done, so in this frame, pretend for a second that the eye is entirely closed. Since the eye is closed, it gives us a great opportunity just to do a little squash and stretch down there at the bottom. By changing the arc at the bottom of the eye, we're suggesting to the audience that the eyeball itself is actually deforming as it looks down, is deforming the bottom of the eye. So this is a great opportunity to add just a little bit of detail. I'm going to hit the U key to bring open my stroke selection, my stroke editing engine, and just change some of these points down here. And let's do this. Let's grab that one. I'm going to grab the center point, put it right in the center of the onion skinning. This is where the onion skinning is really helpful. And I'm just going to kind of flatten this just a little bit, somewhere right around in here. And I think I may have gone a little too far on one side. And of course, I could do this all day. But yeah, that could be kind of good. Let's see how it looks as we flip through. Yeah, it's a subtle change in the eyeball shape, but it is starting to suggest quite wonderfully, I think, that there's something inside the eye socket that's changing the shape. Now for frame 5, 6, and 7, we're going to use the animation frames that we've already created, but we're going to modify them ever so slightly. I'm going to go to frame 3, grab it, Shift D to duplicate it, and drag it over here to frame 5. Now, as the lid opens, we need to ensure that we're slowly beginning the opening of the eyelid. In addition, we also want to suggest that the arc that defines the eyelid has changed its direction. Again, to further illustrate the idea that the three-dimensional eyeball in the eye socket itself is changing the shape of our eye. So on this one, I'm going to grab that stroke. I'm going to add a curve editing mode. And I think what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to grab it, bring it down here to the bottom, but I'm also going to rotate it 180 degrees. Yeah, something like that. Let's scale it down. Yeah, because now it's slowly opening on frame 5, and we'll do the same thing on frame 6. We'll Shift D, duplicate it, drag it over to frame 6. I'm going to grab the eyelid, move it up along the Z-axis, somewhere right around in here, and we'll scale it up until we're happy with its location. And on frame 7, I think we're going to have it right up there next to the top. So last time, frame 7, grab it, move it up along the Z-axis. We'll scale it down so it matches. You can also, in this moment, start to non-uniformly scale it a little bit. Maybe we scale it this way as a touch as well. Now, I hit the Z key, which is allowing me to scale the arc up and down. And that's kind of neat, because now we're suggesting that as the as the lid goes to the top of the eye, that it's changing its shape. Should we do that down here as well? Maybe super accentuate the lid? Let's give it a try. Let's see how it looks. Hit the scale, hold down there, or tap the Z key. Ooh, that could be kind of fun. Let's play the animation and see what we get. Now, if it looks like it's going fast, it should. It's a blink. Blinks are fast. But we're starting to suggest a little bit of life, and it's a good place to end up. Generally speaking, I'm really happy with the result that we've gotten so far in this animation. It looks as though our eye closes. We have some details that we need to add in both the pupil and the lid, but overall, this is a very great structure for our animation. Now, the last keyframe that we need to add in here is on frame 8, and it is, in every sense, going to be another keyframe where the eye is open. So I'm going to duplicate frame 1, send it over here to frame 8, and now let's play our animation and see what we get. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. The structure of our blink has begun.